Today I'm going to do a demonstration of a quick self-portrait for you using just black and white acrylic paint. In this video, you will see how I set up the mirror in relation to my painting surface and paints. And I will also talk a little bit about sighting when looking in a mirror. You'll see me start a self-portrait quickly without measuring and by squinting a lot so that I can concentrate on the larger shapes. You'll see me use the background as a way of having an effect on the values in the painting and as a way of refining the shapes that I'm trying to represent. Once I have general positions of features in place, you'll see me use a method where I put down the darkest color in an area first and then introduce progressively lighter values into that area. In this case, the left-hand side of my face. You will see how I keep shapes and edges open-ended so I can keep on refining them gradually as the painting progresses. You'll see how recognizable features emerge from concentrating on the shapes of values, not on features like eyes, noses, or mouths. The final painting in this case is unfinished, which I think works okay, but it's not what I was planning when I was doing the painting. I just ran out of time, which is okay for me because I'm the instructor. I just had to go meet my wife and child. For this project, I would like you to submit a finished self-portrait. There's just the what's going to hold the camera while I paint. There's the surface I'm going to be painting on. There is the mirror set up behind the surface. There's the light up there that is going to be illuminating my head as I paint it. Brushes, black and white paint. I've mixed some retarder into it, a cup of water, and then extra paint there. So I'm not going to be sitting exactly like this because the camera's too in the way, but I wanted to show you the relationship of the edge of the painting to what I'm seeing in the mirror. They're very close together so that I don't actually even really have to move my head. I might have to move it a little bit, but barely, to be able to look back between the reflection in the mirror and the image that I'm painting. And I also just want to note, just take a look quickly at the way that my face is lit. So in relation to the background, my face is the lightest thing that I'm seeing, at least the left-hand side of my face. The background is darker, and then the dark part of my face is darker than the background in the back. So those are just some things that I'm picking up on very quickly as I'm looking at the scene that I'm going to paint. Okay. I gave the surface a little spritz with water, just a little bit. And I've mixed up a gray that is a little bit darker than the gray ground that I have on the painting. This gray ground is that sludge, Triart sludge gesso that I think I've shown you in another demo, or you're going to see in another demo. This you can get at Desserts, and it's cheaper than regular gesso because it's made from recycled pigment. Otherwise, it's so they recycle the pigment from their machines that they use in their paint production, and then they mix up the gesso and they add back the required sort of additives and binders so that it's a good quality gesso. It's just that it's not pristine white that we're used to with gesso. So I think it's a good good option for a budget. I like the gray. So I'm using a big brush to begin with, and I'm going to be squinting at what I'm looking at. And I feel like I didn't do a good job describing the sort of squinting. I'm not gonna be jumping into very precise shadows at this point because faces are much more complex, and small changes in faces really create big effects. You can get away with a lot when you're painting from life, but the form is quite abstract. But I am going to squint significantly at first, which is really going to help me get like place the form of my head on the painting, and get understand where the big shadows are just right off the bat. So just in a minute or two, I've laid in a general shape, a little bit of a notion of where shadows are. I'm going to throw some more, a little bit more gray down to indicate how things are going to work. And then I think I'm going to cut into the background around my face before getting back into it. So we'll see what happens now. I'm not trying to ever, as I'm really trying to find form, I'm not trying to ever close off a form. I might, draw around with the paintbrush. Got to move a little bit to see what's going on there. I might try to draw around with a paintbrush a form just like I did, and that's not actually. Actually, it is a little bit darker, but I'm not. And I might try to darken it, but I'm not. I never fill it in at this point. I'm not trying to reach any, absolute certainty about what I'm looking at the moment. So here, remember I was saying the dark, I'm reading the dark in my face as darker than the dark behind on the back wall. So I was just using the back wall to, can't really see my palette very well. Just using the back wall to cut into, to refine the shape of my head a little bit. And now I'm mixing up a dark, which is a little bit darker than this. See that? For the shadows on my face. I'll show you what I'm doing a little bit. I am measuring a tiny bit. Okay, there's hair that's going to come in there, but I'm really interested in that shadow right now. Comes around down to somewhere where my glasses are going to be. Trying not to get caught up in details right now and just trying to see larger shadow areas. Gonna get a little darker where that my very dark nice and dark neck thingy is. Neck thingy, I forget what these things are called. It's not the most easy thing to talk about what you're doing when you're doing it, you're painting. I end up losing my words. Oops, that was a little too dark actually. Kind of forgot what I was doing. Get back to the gray I was using before. Because it's going to move. Oops, that was just a mistake. That's also a little bit dark. My glasses are incredibly prominent parts of my face. So I'm just, even though I'm going to probably paint over this, I'm just laying it in so I can make sense of it. So I haven't done any real measuring so far. But I have been squinting a lot. And so, the squinting really it sort of allows you to stay in the big picture parts of the image. I'm trying to see, like what you'll find when you're painting a face is that if you can actually see the shapes of shadows and lights, that it's not a matter of sort of thinking too much about, oh, where's the nose and where's the mouth. It's more of a, what is that shape there, and what's the relationship between it and the shape next to it, and suddenly your the face begins to appear from that. It's not a bad thing to know something about the way that measurements and faces work, which we'll talk about a little bit. But really really the important part of it is trying to really paint what you see. Not sure that this is that good. Just mixing up a bit of a background gray for the right side of my face, which I'm deliberately making a little bit lighter, like that. I was saying at one point, something came up about making every mark count as if it's representing something, and I think that this is it's an important thing to think about. But I do have to say, as I'm sitting here laying this gray in, I'm not thinking about what I'm looking at in the background at the moment. But what I am doing is I'm not laying it in really solidly, and I've got some marks that have a little bit of visual interest in them. And so in the absence of something where you're trying to be really specific, maybe try to make the marks and the surface interesting. I think I'm trying to think a little bit about these small shadows in my hairline. And trying to think about having things get a little bit lighter as they move to the other side of my face, which is in the light. My beard is actually a little bit lighter than my skin. So I'm trying to get a sense of that. although it does sort of disappear into darkness eventually. Just trying to keep my palette wet even though I've got the retarder in there. It's a hard thing when my beard is so close to the value of my face. It's just like it's like a tiny bit lighter. So being able to distinguish between the two without having a color to help with that. It's a little bit of an issue. But I think I'm just piddling away here, so I need to change gears. Just want to see something. One thing I just want to show you is, normally you hold your arm out at arm's length when you're measuring. I'm just using a ruler here as a straight edge to show you. And I have been using this ruler a little bit as I've been going along, not for measuring, but for angling. So, like if I wanted to understand what happens to the side of my ear, trying to look in the camera to get this right, side of my ear in relation to the background, I can go like that. It gives me that negative space gives me a sense of what I'm looking at. But what I've actually been doing is moving it, right up close to my face instead, because then I do get that weird shadow there. But or if I wanted to try to get, like, for instance, like, if I hold it horizontal, I get a sense of what's happening with my glasses, like the angle that my glasses aren't really horizontal. They're angling down slightly from that view. They're actually angling it differently in the when I'm looking in the mirror for the painting. But so if you're doing stuff like that, when you're doing a self-portrait, don't confuse yourself by having to look at two different rulers in the mirror. Just hold it right up to your face, whatever you're using to measure, and that's going to be easier. Oh, I keep hitting that. So I'm now going to lay, it's going to look a little bit weird. I'm going to lay a dark down. And this is going to be the darkest part of the light in my face and in my ear. And then I'm going to work back into it, making it lighter where it needs to be lighter. I just threw some dark back in where I was fairly certain it needs to be dark. But now I'm going to start working back into the light areas. I'm going to clean my brush a bit. So I'm carving into the dark that I've laid down. And here I really am trying to be careful about the shapes that I'm making. Now I got a little bit lighter on the palette there. Actually, that's not, I don't think that's lighter on the palette. I think it just dries darker. At this point, I'm trying to have every brush stroke that I make be informed by my looking at my reflection. I'm not saying they're always the right brush stroke, but I am trying to do that. I'm missing a dark on it right here. So I'm working, as I said, from dark to light here. Working from dark to light within the light parts of my face. Oops. I gotta deal with my eye in a little bit of a different way. See, I'm really trying to get a sense of where the light falls off, which happens towards the middle of my face, but it's not a strong delineation. Doing a lot of squinting right now, so because these lights here, if I don't squint and really get a sense for how things are working in a larger way on the form of my face, I'm not going to understand. I'm going to get too light in some areas. I'm going to do my nose, my whole nose again here, even though I'm going to leave a little bit as it turns down. One thing I'm going to do, because I worried I'm getting a little confused by not having the right value there, is I'm just going to lay this in, because it's otherwise I'm going to get confused a bit. Even though I'm talking about working dark to light, of course you can always cut back in with the other. Oh, that was terrible. I'll fix that later. You can always cut back in with a dark into a light, especially with acrylic paint. I mean, everything is still wet, but doesn't even matter. I can just cut back into it. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of reiterating, and the reiteration isn't a bad thing because it sorry, I'm just squinting here. Because it creates a kind of texture. And allows you to get to know what you're painting. I don't feel a lot of romanticism about the reiteration. If it can go faster, I think, why not? Why not allow it to go faster? Notice also that I'm still using a big brush, big-ish brush. Oh, I'm going to put that dark in now. He says, and then shows a smaller brush on the screen. This is just the brush I was using for the scarf. See, in my very little hair that I have on top of my head, you definitely don't want to be painting every hair, but in some cases I'm trying to allow the brush to make a hairy mark, whatever that is. So about eyes, I do worry a little bit about the sort of manga eyes, you know, that are so popular these days. It's almost like a face becomes just an excuse for eyes, and that's not. Anyway, it doesn't have that much to do with what we're looking at when we're looking at eyes, is what I'm saying. I just threw this gray little wash down here, forgetting to hit record. I'm getting caught up in this, and I was just trying to darken it, so. So I hope here what you've been able to see is the quick way that I use squinting to lay down the form. I don't expect everyone to be able to do that right away, and if I actually started measuring everything, I think that I would actually find some you know, strictly speaking, some proportion problems that I didn't fix because I wasn't trying to fix them at the beginning of the painting. But it is a just squinting and intuitively kind of trying to see the largest forms first, and then progressively smaller forms is not a bad way to get something down that's very close to what you're looking at. And then what I also hope is sort of has been available to you on this is the idea of working from dark to light, using that idea of palette etiquette that I showed you earlier in another demo video, where you can lay a color down for an area, like the lightest part of your face, for instance, like your face that's in the light. If you think about that as an area to address, then you can lay darks down, and then you can mix progressively lighter colors on your palette in relation to the color you laid down, and work your lights into that into the dark that you laid down. Sorry, and also, I want you to sort of realize how little it took to make an eye. Really, it was about the lights, the darks rather, that the eye is sitting in, and really the eye just sort of formed from three shapes that I laid in with a fairly big brush. So try not to get caught up in the eyes. Try not to get caught up in the features as such, like a nose or an ear. Try really to concentrate on the form that you're looking at. This was, I think, a little over an hour, maybe a little bit longer than that. I'll look at the footage and I'll be able to tell you how long it was. So with a 2-hour portrait, here I just have to go because I've got to go and meet my wife and son. But I would address the dark in here normally in the dark part of the face, but maybe not as much. You this with a study like this, you're allowed to leave some parts of it unfinished. Okay, there we go.